Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 2024 horror film Immaculate. Now, to be honest, the trailers for this film looked kind of interesting visually, which is really the main reason why I decided to check this film out in the first place. That, and also I was curious to see whether or not Sydney Sweeney could pull off this kind of movie. And I didn't really know about the connections or the parallels plot wise to the first Omen until after I saw the film. So that didn't really come into play when I was seeing it. I know a lot of people have criticized this film harshly because they think it's a ripoff of the first Omen. I think that's a little unfair because I'm pretty sure that both films were probably conceived around the same time. And I don't think they necessarily were taking anything from one another. It just happened to be a coincidence that they had similar plot elements. And honestly, if you ask me, I think this is a much better movie than the first Omen anyway, but I'm not going to get into that because I just want to focus on my thoughts on Immaculate. It's directed by Michael Mohan, and before this, he did a film called The Voyeurs with Sydney Sweeney, and he did like another film called Save the Date, which is like a romantic comedy with Lizzie Kaplan, and then he did like a indie comedy called One Too Many Mornings. So The Voyeurs was a little bit of a, I would say a little bit of a, I wouldn't say crash course, but it was definitely a little bit of a learning opportunity ahead of time for Mohan to kind of get in the vibe and to kind of figure out how to shoot a more suspenseful film. And I think that paid off because I think his direction in this, for the most part, I thought it was really good. I thought he did a great job with the visuals in terms of showcasing the church and the countryside when it comes to where it takes place in Italy, and the scenes that involved anything that was horror related, like the finale in the catacombs and the reveal of the hidden laboratory and just the opening sequence were really well done. I thought they were shot in a way that really did maximize the tension, maximize the fear and the anxiety and the suspense. And there were some moments in the film that were very brutal, and I feel the direction also emphasized those moments well. It's not a film that has a lot of direction that is particularly super stagnant or stuck in the mud or stuck in its ways or rigid. It isn't something like that. Like, it has a good flow to it, a good amount of energy throughout when it comes to the directing, and I think he got some pretty good performances out of his cast, especially from Sydney Sweeney. So yeah, I think the direction is definitely a highlight, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he has planned next. I'm hoping it's another horror film because it seems like I think he might have found his niche here. Now, the script by Andrew Lobel, I really like this screenplay. I know it's been divisive for some people because they feel that it lacks depth or it doesn't explain certain things. I love that about this script. I love that this script is to the point. It's rather simple. And because of that, it never gets too convoluted. It never gets too hard to follow. And it's one of those stories where it is not necessarily, I would say, unpredictable, but in this kind of genre, I don't really think that that's not necessarily a net negative if a script is a little predictable in some ways. But in other ways, I think there's some good twists here. For instance, spoiler, the fact that the church is utilizing this former geneticist, and he's using the church to breed these I wouldn't say clones, but it kind of is sort of a clone. What he's doing is he's using genetics and taking the DNA from the nail that was put into Jesus's uh, forearms, or his I don't think forearm, but it was through his wrist. So the nail that was put into the cross when Jesus was nailed to the cross, it has some DNA left behind on it. And so this geneticist, who's now a priest, he's using that in order to cause the Immaculate Conception of Christ. But he's doing it in a way that's totally immoral and questionable and disturbing and genuinely horrifying. And the way that Sydney Sweeney's character is essentially taken advantage of, Cecilia, it's very compelling, at least to me personally. Like, you definitely sympathize with her immediately. And the whole Immaculate Conception aspect of it, I thought was handled in a way where it was interesting. It was interesting to see something that's considered to be a miracle and a blessing actually be something more sinister. And I felt that that was more intriguing to me than just another devil baby movie. Because that's not really what Immaculate is. It's not another, oh, some woman gets impregnated with the devil's child. Like, that's not really what it is. It's something a little bit different. So it takes kind of a similar idea, but then puts enough of a spin on it that it feels a little fresh. And so I definitely like that about the script. And I also liked that it starts off with a bang. Like, so it starts off with a really intense, harrowing sequence where this woman, she's trying to get away from these mysterious figures, and she gets absolutely annihilated in brutal fashion. And then you get some character depth and development on Cecilia and why she's going to this convent in Italy. And I liked that this convent is a place for dying nuns who are going through their last throes of life. You know, they don't have much time left, and so this convent is for these nuns. And I thought that was an interesting addition to the story as well, as you don't see that kind of thing that often, and that has its own kind of creep factor too, because there's just so much death that's always surrounding this convent, and there is this kind of underground cult that's happening in the convent as well, led by the geneticist, and they are doing all these experiments, and there's a long history of failed experiments, and that's why there are some of these nuns that have crosses burnt onto their feet, and there's just a lot of stuff that throughout the film it just reveals a little bit more and more and more about the history of this convent, what is going on here, the true genesis of this Immaculate Conception that Cecilia is going through. And she starts conceiving a child out of the blue rather quickly when it comes to the overall flow of the story. So that's another thing. I like that it didn't meander around, didn't take too much long to really get to that point. And how people around her are reacting and how she's dealing with it. There's a pretty tense scene where you think that she's just, relaxing in a pool, and then she gets attacked by this other woman who's trying to kill her, and then it just escalates from there. And there's some really creepy, disturbing weird visuals and imagery. There's some scenes involving the religious cult and torture that's pretty memorable. I know that some people don't like the fact that a lot of that aspect of the film is not really explained that much. I don't mind that at all because it just makes things more immersive. Because the screenwriter clearly decided to focus on putting yourself in the shoes of Cecilia and her terror and exactly what she's seeing, exactly what she's hearing, exactly what she's going through. So she figures out things the same time that you do as an audience member. And I honestly prefer that type of storytelling versus revealing twists or revealing plot elements ahead of time, and then you're just waiting for the lead actress or the main character to just catch up with what you already know. I feel that that affects the pacing of a story to me. And so I like it that it keeps things secret, it keeps things hidden. You don't know all the answers. She doesn't know all the answers either. I also like the fact that Cecilia is not she's not presented as somebody who is just going to go with the flow, as somebody who can't fend for herself, and someone who isn't intelligent enough to kind of figure things out and she needs some help. Like she figures things out on her own, and she's even willing to try to trick the church in terms of killing a chicken and covering herself in blood and acting like she's hurt so she can get out of there and go to the hospital. Um but of course that doesn't work out because there's still a good chunk of the movie left, but I still appreciate the fact that she was smart enough to actually try to outsmart them. And I think that there's a great slow burn element to this too. And there's some really nightmarish imagery involving the church. Uh, like this, the whole sequence where Sydney Sweeney is essentially dressed up like a saint, and she has this dead-eyed look on her face. There's something really creepy about that. How something that's considered to be so joyous and such a miracle, such a blessing, can be the complete opposite for the person that is experiencing it. And I think there's some good subtext in terms of women's reproductive rights, especially when it comes to the church and how they view choice for women when it comes to conception. And it's not done in a way that's too preachy to me. I felt it was still there, but it's not shoved down your throat. So I think it was a lot more effective that way. Makes you think, but it doesn't dominate the conversation. It doesn't take over good chunks of the movie. And I think the slow burn pays off in the end because you have a really suspenseful finale with Cecilia figuring out what the truth is when it comes to her immaculate conception, fending off the priest, trying to stay one step ahead of the priest while she's wandering through the dark catacombs, and then trying to survive. And the end of the film is bloody. It's bloody as hell. It's brutal. There's a one particular scene where Cecilia bashes this I think it was a nun. It was either a nun or a priest or someone's head in with a cross. I think it's a cross, but just completely just bashes their face clean in, and it's all done practically. And burns the lab with all of the experiments and the failed Christ clones. And at this point, she's like far along in her pregnancy too, and she's got burnt crosses on her feet, and she's still going out there and just kicking ass. Strangles one of the corrupt evil priests too with his prayer beads, and the ending of the film, I really like that it doesn't show the baby. Like a lot of other films like this, it would show the baby, but it doesn't go that route. It's all from the perspective of her after she's escaped from the priest and she survived and just went through absolute hell. She finally gives birth to this child, and the way that it's handled in the script I thought was really unique, because it not only focused more on Cecilia and less on the child, but it also showed how harrowing, how intense, and how genuinely painful childbirth is in a very just really visceral way, which is something that I didn't expect. And I loved how she just grabbed a rock at the end after she forced this baby out that she didn't want, by the way, and just crushes it with a rock. She's just like, nah, I'm not messing around with this abomination. I'm gonna kill it. It's dead, and that's how the movie ends. And I was like, nice. I appreciated that it was like short, to the point. It starts with some weirdness. There's a sense that there's something creepy about this convent and things aren't what they seem. Then she has this immaculate conception and she's freaked out by it, but all these other people around her aren't. So that makes her suspicious. Then she notices all these other strange things that are happening around her and sort of things that are going on at this convent. She does her own research, finds the truth, and then is on the run. Now she has to fend for her life. And I like that she's not trying to protect the child. Like she's like, I don't care about this baby. I didn't want this baby to begin with. I'm here to protect myself. I'm gonna save myself. Fuck this baby. I like that. And there was like no hesitance with her either. It wasn't like, oh, but it's a child and it's a baby. It's a life. I can't. It's like, no, I didn't ask for this baby. I never wanted this baby. And this thing is an abomination. And I'm not going to let this fake Christ be brought into this world. And I'm not going to do it. And so she becomes a savior in a different way. She's kind of a different kind of saint if you think about it by the end of the movie. And I just love how it just ends in with a ton of blood, a fair amount of kills, and a lot of screaming, and then end credits. I'm like, you know what? That's a horror film. Like that's how you do it. Um, the cast, I think. Here's the thing about the cast. Other than Sydney Sweeney, there really isn't anyone that I would say stands out significantly, but I think that's kind of the point. A lot of the cast is just lesser known Italian actors and actresses that aren't really cast because of star power. So you've got Sydney Sweeney as Cecilia, but then you have Álvaro Morte as father, Tedeschi, who is the geneticist turned priest. Dora Romano is Mother Superior. Benedetta Porcaroli is Sister Gwen. Giorgio Colangeli is the Cardinal. Simona Tabasco is Sister Mary. Uh, Giulia Heathfield di Renzi is Sister Isabella. I would say most of the runtime is devoted to Sydney Sweeney's character Cecilia, or Tedeschi, or Mother Superior, or Sister Gwen. And Sweeney, here's the thing. I see what some critics have said about her performance in this, that at times is a bit stiff, because this isn't necessarily the kind of role that she's used to, or she still at this point isn't really as polished of an actress, but I still think it was a good performance. And the reason for that is because of the fact that she is a total professional when it comes to being a scream queen. Like when it comes to her being in dangerous situations, when it comes to her being under siege or fighting for her life and just terrorized, she is an absolute pro already when it comes to believably showcasing those emotions and making you genuinely believe that she's going through absolute hell. And I think that's really what more of the point of the film was anyway. And I think that's why she was cast, is for those moments and for stuff like the intense birth scene at the end. Like, that's actually a pretty. I thought it was actually a pretty impressive performance by her. There's no dialogue. All it is just her giving birth to this child essentially off screen. So you really have to effectively convey the intensity and the emotion and do it in a way that doesn't come across as forced and comes across as natural. So you got to show the pain, you got to show the intensity, or the disgust, when the baby's born. Um, and she sees that that it's genuinely, truly some kind of abomination, and she effectively showcases all of those things and then some. And yeah, it helps, she is a very attractive woman, but they didn't really, that really wasn't what a main focus here either. I didn't really feel like this was a story or a film where they cast Sydney Sweeney because, oh, we want to have this attractive woman and make her all scantily clad and naked. Like, even the one scene where she is naked in a shower, like, it's not set up in a way where it's supposed to be sexy or anything. Like, it's quite the opposite. It's actually a pretty low moment in her life at that point. So I think Sweeney, to me, I felt she was a good choice to play Cecilia. Did she perfectly display the innocence of the character? Maybe not. But like I said, what they really wanted from Cecilia was to show how she reacts to being this new mother, and how she's dealing with that, and how she is reacting to all these different revelations that occur throughout the story, and then how things build from there. So because she's so good at just being intense, I think it was a genuinely good casting choice. And the rest of the, like I said, they're fine. Like, I would say the biggest standouts: Álvaro Morte, Dora Romano as Tedeschi and Mother Superior. Benedetta Porcaroli was okay too as Sister Gwen. I think Sister Gwen was the one. Yeah, she was the one that Cecilia kind of. Yeah, Cecilia befriends. So the scene where Gwen is tortured and her tongue is taken out, and Cecilia watches. That was a pretty intense and powerful scene. And I would say it was made all the more intense because of the fact that I bought the connection between uh, uh, Benedetta and Sydney. Now, the film also features some nice cinematography by Alicia Christian, as well as some good editing by Christian Massini. The music by Will Bates, it's a lot of atmospheric, sort of moody stuff, not anything that's really going to be on your playlist, but it works for the film. And I just loved how this was paced. It was 89 minutes, and I never really felt it slowed down that much. I didn't find it was that boring or that tedious or dull like other people have. Uh, this was, in my opinion, a good, effective, harrowing, genuinely horrifying at times religious horror film that was fast paced, brutal and visceral when it needed to be, and didn't pull any punches, and was very surprising. Like, I was genuinely surprised by this film. I would say it's definitely probably somewhere in my top 10 for 2024, and I wouldn't mind picking it up someday on physical media. And I would recommend it. I honestly would. I Even if you're not a big fan of religious horror films, like, it's only 89 minutes. Like, it's a and that's with the end credits. You take out the end credits, it's only like 80, 85, 86. So it's like an hour and 20 something minutes long, so it's not like it's going to overstay its welcome that much. And that was really refreshing, I have to be honest, as well, to see a film that came out in 2024 that is of the vein of Immaculate and not be over 2 hours. It's like, nah, we're gonna be fast and we're gonna be like a gut punch. We're not gonna draw this out. And I appreciated that immensely. So that's another reason why I liked the film, is because it didn't drag things out so much. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Immaculate. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.